Please help! They took my dad's bike!
Don't you worry now. We're gonna get it back.
The sound stopped everyone mid-bite, a tiny voice carrying a weight nobody expected. It split the late afternoon, clean and brittle, as if the street itself had been holding its breath. The sun had that honeyed look it gets just after 6, lengths of orange and gold pooling on the pavement and making chrome look like memories. At a rundown corner gas station on the edge of a sleepy small town, a pack of bikers had pulled in for coffee and to stretch after a long ride. Neon buzzed, vending machines hummed, and the smell of oil and exhaust clung to the air. Then came the cry again. Heads turned. There, by the pump, sat a little girl no older than 8, hoodie a faded pink instead of the familiar red. Her shoes were untied, lashes wet. In front of her, taped to a flattened box, someone had scrawled a plea in clumsy letters: "Please help me find my dad's bike." For a second, nobody moved. That tiny plea had a shape to it, a thing too human to ignore. A tall man with sun-creased skin and a leather vest that had seen better days stepped forward. Everyone called him Mac. Years on the road had given him a silence that said more than a speech. He crouched beside the girl, slow and careful, as if the moment could shatter if he moved too fast. "Hey," he said softly, "what happened, kiddo?" The girl wiped her face with the back of her hand. "They took my dad's motorcycle," she said. Her voice trembled like the last leaf on a branch. "It was the last thing I had of him." Her name was Lily. Her dad, Jake Turner, had been the kind of man who'd answer the call when sirens sounded, calm, steady, a firefighter who left footprints everywhere he went. A year ago, a call took him and he didn't come home. Since then, they kept the Harley in the driveway like a quiet presence, something that smelled like him. Mac listened the way old writers do, by remembering the silence between words. He thought of his own childhood beside an engine, of a father's rumble that felt like a promise. "What happened this morning?" he asked. Lily's small shoulders curled inward. "A tow truck. Mom said the bills got worse and they had to take it. She didn't mean to sell it. She sold it to pay a bill. But Dad's bike wasn't just metal." Her voice dropped until it was nearly a whisper. It was him. Around them, the crew shifted. Bo, broad-shouldered, with a laugh like gravel, took off his bandana and handed it to Lily. "Here," he said gruffly. "Wear this. You're with us now until we find it." She tied it clumsily under her chin, eyes going wide with a fragile, sudden pride. For a moment the sadness lifted, the bandana was a new kind of armor. Max studied the cardboard sign, the handwriting, the way her hands trembled. Nobody in that lot was an angel, it was a nickname, a patch, a life full of mistakes and second chances. But most of them had known loss in a way that made them strangely good at remembering what mattered. The word lost sounded different next to a child's voice. It made the men still. "Have you eaten anything?" Mac asked. Lily shook her head. "Then come on," he said, standing up. "We've got jerky and soda." It wasn't much, but it was something. She clutched her sign like a map and followed them toward the bikes, small footsteps uncertain on the hot asphalt. They set her on the curb beside a row of machines cooling from the day's run. Mac handed her a can of root beer with gloved hands, the metal cold and bright. As she drank, he asked the kind of soft questions that let people breathe. "Your dad ride a lot?" "Every weekend," she said. He said the road helped him think. When she admitted she used to put her ear to the tank and hum along to the engine's notes, something in Mac's chest shifted. Not grief, something quieter, a recognition. He remembered his own father's bike, how its vibration felt like a heartbeat under the palm of a kid who thought the world would never change. He looked up at the men behind him, Cal, Ryder, Hector, faces lined with stories. "All right," Mac said at last, his voice steady. "We'll see about getting it back." They rolled out with no plan except that the word Dad had been spoken by a child, and that fact alone made it worth trying. Lily stood on the curb, bandana crooked and proud, watching the engine start. The rumble wrapped around her like an embrace. For the first time since the tow truck, she didn't feel alone. "Before we dive into the story, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments right now." Are you watching from your living room in Texas, your kitchen in the London, your office break room in Canada? Let me know, because this story about courage, community, and protection, it's universal. It crosses borders. And I want to see how far Lily's message reaches today. Alright, let's go back. You won't believe who recognizes the bike at the impound, and the reason they do changes everything. Mac didn't pretend to have a plan. What he had was a name scribbled on a tow ticket: Turner, Harley, and the kind of stubbornness that follows a child's plea. He climbed into his rig with Cal, Ryder, and Bo sliding into formation behind him. The engines rolled like low thunder through sleepy streets that still smelled of hot asphalt and cut grass. Lily sat between them on a bench at the clubhouse, fingers knotting and unknotting the bandana Bo had given her. Every few minutes she would look down the road, hopeful and small and utterly sure the men in leather had set out on her behalf. They called impound lots when they had to. Mac's voice into the phone was calm, careful, the kind of voice that gets you past guards who'd otherwise hang up. On the fifth call a gruff man finally answered. "Yeah, we picked up a black and silver Harley yesterday. Turner name on the plate." Mac's heart jammed a beat and then settled. "Is it still there?" "Yep. Needs a release fee. $700 or we auction it off next week." Mac let the silence sit for a second, then said, "We'll be there." $700 was easy to some, a crisis for others. Back at the clubhouse, hands went into wallets. Crumpled bills, folded tens, a couple of checks. Everyone poured in what they could. Bo slapped a heavy roll of bills on the table and grinned. "Guess we're skipping the usual dinner," he said. The room filled with the easy camaraderie of men who treat each other like family because they had no one else left who would. When they counted it up, they were shy by a few dollars. Ryder looked at Mac. "We'll make it," he said, and the way he said it left no debate. The ride to the impound felt like a procession. The bikes hummed low, respectful, not a threat, but a presence. The lot sat behind chain link and a swing gate, rows of forgotten machines glinting in the sun. A man in his stained uniform met them, clipboard in hand. Mac slid his hands into his pockets and met the man's eyes. "Here for a Turner Harley," he said simply. The man flipped through his pages and then stopped. He pointed. "Yeah, it's here. Black and silver. Picked up yesterday." He hesitated. "You know, I remember that bike. Good name on the registration." Mac felt his chest tighten. "Was the owner?" The man's voice got quieter. "His name was Jake Turner. Firefighter. Good man. Came by here last year with his kid standing at the fence, looking like he lost his best friend." The lines around the guard's eyes softened. "If I had to guess, he'd done a lot for the town." Hearing Jake's name out loud, in that small lot of indifferent metal and sunlight, set something odd and steady in Mac's chest. These weren't strangers. This was a thread connecting the man with the kid on the curb and the worn-out machine they were about to unroll into sunlight again. They paid the fee in cash, crumpled, folded, honest. The clerk took the money and slid the release form across the counter, pen already uncapped. Mac signed his name with the casual steadiness of someone who'd signed too many forms to be phased now. The gate opened with a reluctant groan and the Harley rolled out, dusty and scratched but recognizably whole. Up close, the telltale wear on the gas tank and a faint, deliberate scratch near the seat told Mac this bike had been lived with, not just used. As they pushed it into daylight, a woman walking a dog paused at the lot's fence. She squinted at the tank and then at the chrome. "Is that the Turner bike?" she asked. The clerk nodded. Her face changed. She leaned in over the fence and called a name, "Jake?" As if speaking to someone who might answer. For a heartbeat, the lot felt like a church. The little human moments stack up in a strange way, they rearrange what we think we know. They loaded the Harley into the back of a truck and headed back toward town, the weight of it balanced by the chatter in the cab and the steady thump of engines behind them. Lily watched from the front seat of Bo's truck, hands pressed to the window. When they turned the corner near her street, her breath hitched as the bike's silver flashed in the sun. At the driveway, Maya, Lily's mother, stood with a dish towel in her hands, eyes wide and raw as a wound. She'd sold the bike thinking it was just paperwork and numbers. She hadn't understood what it kept. When the tarp came off and sunlight caught the tank, everything shifted. Lily ran forward as if she had been waiting her whole life for that exact moment. She reached out and laid a trembling hand on the metal, an almost reverent gesture. Mac stepped down off the truck and handed them the folded receipt. Maya took it with shaking fingers and let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You didn't have to do this," she said, voice breaking. Mac straightened, shading his eyes. "You were the one who gave him to us," he said quietly. "You gave us a reason." There was a moment, quick and quiet, where the neighborhood looked at them differently. No leather, no rumor. Just neighbors watching a small girl reclaim something she had thought lost. When Mac climbed back onto his bike, the engine's purr felt like a benediction. Lily hugged the Harley and didn't let go. The men watched her, faces unreadable, but in each of those faces something like a promise had been made. You won't believe what they find when they check the bike's history, an unexpected note tucked under the seat that reveals why Jake meant so much to the town. Don't miss it. If the day had ended right there, Lily hugging that Harley like it was her father's heartbeat brought back to life, Mac would have already called it a good day. A rare one. One that made the road feel like something more than asphalt and miles. But the road wasn't finished with him, not yet. After the men left Lily Street, they rode slow, engine steady and thoughtful. Back at the clubhouse, the Harley sat under a soft tarp, waiting for Lily and her mom to return later with a truck to pick it up safely. The sun cast long shadows across the garage floor, warm streaks hitting the chrome, making the bike glow like something holy. Bo wiped his hands on a rag and gave Mac a sideways look. "You notice that?" "Notice what?" Mac muttered, pulling off his gloves. Bo pointed toward the seat, specifically, under it. "There's a loose screw. Wasn't loose before." "You're telling me you didn't see that?" Mac frowned. The crew had rebuilt most of the bike, sure. But they hadn't touched the underside of the seat. The bolts there were untouched, the old kind with a worn star-shaped pattern that only years could make. Mac crouched down, flashlight in hand. Bo was right. That screw wasn't loose, it was placed that way. Like someone wanted it found. Cal stepped beside them. "Something wrong?" "Don't know yet," Mac said quietly. He grabbed a driver, twisted the screw free, then another. The seat lifted with a soft scrape of metal. Then everything in the garage went still. Under the seat, wrapped in a weathered plastic bag, sat a folded sheet of notebook paper. Old. Yellowed. The edges soft like it had been there for years. Bo whistled under his breath. "What the hell?" Mac didn't answer. He pulled the note out gently, like it might crumble. When he unfolded it, the handwriting hit him first, bold strokes, shaky in places. A man's handwriting. Someone who had written this with the weight of something heavy on his chest. Cal leaned in. "Read it." Mac cleared his throat, voice low. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it home." The air in the room thinned. He read on. "Lily, baby girl, I know you're still little now, but someday you'll be big enough to understand this. If something ever happens to me, I want you to know I wasn't scared. I lived the way I loved, loud, honest, and writing home to you every chance I got." Bo rubbed the back of his neck, swallowing hard. Mac kept reading. "If Mom has to let the bike go someday, don't be mad at her. Promise me. Life is heavier for grown-ups than it looks. This machine, it's just metal. But the love we wrapped around it? That stays in you. Always." Cal looked away, jaw tight. The letter continued. "Whoever finds this, if anyone ever does, please take care of her. She's stronger than she knows." Signed at the bottom, slightly smeared. Jake Turner. The room stayed silent long after the final word. Mac held the paper like a piece of someone's soul. He put this here before that call. Bo shook his head. Man knew more than he said. Cal whispered, "We gotta give that to Lily." But Mac didn't rush. He folded the paper gently, set it on the workbench, and placed his palm over it. Something about the words stayed beating in his chest. He wasn't worried about the bike, Max said softly. He was worried about her. Ryder stepped in from the doorway. Then we're not done, are we? Mac looked at the note again and understood. Returning the bike wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. Because a man who leaves a message like that doesn't just disappear. His community doesn't forget him. His stories don't vanish. And his daughter isn't meant to carry the weight alone. Mac took a slow breath. No, he said. We're not done. A new plan was forming, rough around the edges, but real. Realer than anything they'd done in years. Not about bikes. Not about roads. About Lily. And about what Jake Turner meant to this town. Wait until you see what happens when Mac brings that letter to Lily, because someone unexpected sees it first, and it changes everything. By late afternoon, the sun dipped low enough to spill amber across the clubhouse windows. Max sat alone at the workbench, the folded letter resting in front of him like a live wire. The others lingered in the background, quiet, giving him space they knew he needed. They'd all read it now, every man in that garage, and every one of them looked changed by it. But the closer he looked at the paper, the more something tugged at Mac's mind. Jake hadn't just written a goodbye. He'd written a request. A plea. A responsibility. The kind of thing you hand to someone you trust. Someone like a brother. Someone like them. Bo finally broke the silence. She deserves that note, Mac. But maybe her mom too. One of them should see it first. Yeah, Cal added, kids shouldn't carry the whole truth before the adult does. Mac rubbed his jaw. They were right. Lily's mother, Hannah, had carried enough weight already. Bills. Grief. Raising Lily alone. Losing the bike. And now this letter? He had no idea how she'd take it. But he knew one thing. He wasn't handing that note over without being sure it wouldn't break her more than it healed her. He stood and grabbed his helmet. I'll take it to her. Bo raised a brow. You sure you want to do that alone? This ain't exactly light reading. She deserves someone to look her in the eye when she hears it, Max said simply. The crew understood. Sometimes the road didn't need more wheels, it needed honesty. Mac tucked the letter into an envelope and slid it inside his vest pocket. He slung his leg over his bike, and the engine rumbled awake. The rest of the crew stayed behind, watching him roll out into the golden evening. Maplewood Lane was quiet when he arrived. Kids shot hoops in driveways. A golden retriever barked lazily at nothing. The kind of neighborhood where everyone waved, even if they didn't know your name. The kind of neighborhood that still had its heart intact except for one house that had lost its anchor. Mac parked and walked toward the Turner home. He noticed the porch light was already on, though the sun was still up, casting a soft glow that made the house look warm, tired, and lived in. He knocked gently. Footsteps. Then the door cracked open. Hannah Turner stood there in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back, face still soft with exhaustion, but calmer than the day before. She managed a half smile. Mac, she said quietly. Didn't expect to see you again today. Sorry to stop by unannounced, he said. But I found something. Something your husband left behind. Her breath caught. Jake? Mac nodded and held the envelope out. Hannah hesitated, hands trembling, before taking it. Instead of opening it immediately, she stepped aside. Come in, she whispered. The living room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old books. Photos lined the mantel, Jake in uniform, Lily on his shoulders, the three of them laughing at a pumpkin patch years ago. Hannah sat on the couch but didn't open the envelope yet. She stared at it like it was a chest full of memories she wasn't ready to unlock. How did you find this? She asked. Hidden under the seat of his Harley, Max said gently. He must have put it there before his final shift. Maybe before that call. Hannah's eyes filled instantly. Her fingers dug into the envelope as she tried to steady her voice. Do you know what it says? I read it, Mac admitted. We all did. He left it for Lily. For you. For whoever found it, I think. She nodded slowly. Her voice cracked, can you read it to me? Mac froze. He hadn't expected that. Are you sure? He asked softly. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Please. I don't think I can open it myself right now. So he read it. Every line. Every word. Every piece of Jake Turner's heart captured in ink. By the end, Hannah couldn't breathe right. Tears streamed down her face, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, steady heartbreak mixed with relief. The kind that said she had needed this more than she knew. That's my Jake, she whispered. He always said the road teaches you things you can't learn anywhere else. She pressed the letter to her chest. He knew he might not come home one day. He always tried to hide it, but I knew. That letter? Mac said softly. It wasn't fear, Hannah. It was love. She nodded, tears falling again. I want Lily to read it, she said. But I need to tell her first. Before Mac could respond, the front door swung open. Lily stepped inside, helmet in hand, dirt on her jeans, cheeks flushed like she'd been riding her little practice bike. She froze when she saw the envelope. What's that? She asked. Hannah wiped her eyes, pulled Lily close, and whispered. It's from your dad. Lily's breath hitched. He wrote me something? What happened next was nothing Mac could have prepared for. Because before Hannah could answer, Lily snatched the envelope, tore it open, and unfolded the letter. And the look on her face changed everything. What Lily does after reading her father's final words shocks Hannah, stops Mac cold, and sends the entire club into a mission none of them expected, one that threatens to pull up secrets Jake never got to tell. Lily's eyes flew across the paper the way a hummingbird beats its wings, fast, frantic, almost desperate. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She read every line like she'd been waiting her entire life to hear her father's voice again. Hannah sat beside her, hands covering her mouth, terrified that the words inside that envelope might lift her daughter up or shatter her. Mac watched from a few feet away, heart pounding like he was intruding on a sacred moment. He'd seen hardened men break from memories less heavy than this. But a child reading her father's final words? That was something else entirely. Something you didn't forget. When Lily reached the last line, the road always leads you back to family, her small shoulders shook. She didn't cry right away. Her chest rose and fell, silently, like she was trying to swallow the storm forming inside her. Lily, Hannah whispered, reaching for her. But Lily pulled away. Not out of anger. Not out of fear. But out of conviction. Her eyes, still glassy with tears, lifted to Mac. How long have you known my dad? She asked, voice trembling but determined. Mac blinked. I didn't, sweetheart. Not personally. But he rode with our chapter once years ago. A charity ride. It was brief. But real. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your dad left a mark everywhere he went. Lily's jaw tightened, not with bitterness, but with fierce clarity. He wanted me to grow up strong, she said quietly. He said the bike wasn't what mattered. The memory was. Hannah nodded, brushing Lily's hair from her cheek. And he said, Lily continued, her voice gaining steadiness, that the road would bring family to me. Even when I don't expect it. She looked at Mac again. This time, not like he was a stranger. This time, like she recognized him. You guys were supposed to find this, she said. Hannah stiffened. Lily. No, Lily insisted. Dad wrote it for me. But he left it for someone else too. He said whoever found it needed to take care of me. The room went still. Every sound, from the ticking wall clock to the faint hum of the fridge, felt suddenly louder. Hannah swallowed a hard knot. Sweetheart, your dad didn't mean it that way. Lily shook her head. Yes, he did. Then she pointed to a line near the bottom of the letter. The ink was faded, the line easy to overlook, handwritten like Jake added it at the last second. If someone finds this and brings it to you, Lily, trust them. Hannah gasped. Mac froze. Because he had missed that line. All of them had. It blended in with the crease in the paper, almost invisible. But Lily had seen it instantly. She looked straight at Mac, her eyes bright and steady. My dad wanted you in our lives. Hannah pressed her hands to her forehead, tears spilling. Baby, that's what he said, Lily insisted, tapping the words with her finger. Dad knew someone would find this. Someone who cared. Someone who'd help. Mac felt the weight of that land on him like a drop of truth straight to the chest. He'd done a lot of things in his life, some good, some bad, some he'd spent years trying to balance out. But nothing, not even returning the bike, had ever felt as heavy or as right as what that little girl was saying now. Lily, Mac began softly, your dad was a good man. But I'm just. You're the one who brought his bike home, she said. Dad said the road brings the right people. Hannah looked at Mac, eyes wide with fear, gratitude, confusion, everything tangled into one expression that begged him not to run from what was happening. Before anyone could say another word, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp taps. Unexpected. Urgent. Hannah's breath caught. Who could that be at this hour? Mac stepped forward instinctively, old instincts rising, protective, alert. He moved toward the door, placing one hand behind him, quietly signaling Lily and Hannah to stay back. He opened the door slowly. A man stood on the porch, mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, fire department jacket, eyes red like he'd been crying. Mac, he asked. Mac tensed. Yeah? The man swallowed hard and held out a folded newspaper clipping. I think you need to see this. Mac unfolded it. And his blood turned cold. It wasn't a picture of Lily. Not of Jake. Not of the bike. It was an old photo of Jake Turner standing beside 3 other firefighters, and one man whose face was circled in red marker. On the bottom, scribbled in shaky handwriting. If anything happens to me, start with him. What Mac discovers about the man in that photo, and how it connects to Jake's last day, puts the entire club on edge and pushes them into a truth far darker than anyone imagined. Mac stared at the photo in silence, the paper trembling between his fingers. It was an old clipping, sun-faded, edges yellowed, the kind of thing someone carried around for years because it meant something they couldn't say out loud. 4 firefighters stood shoulder to shoulder in front of Station 43. All smiling. All in full gear. Jake was on the far left, bright-eyed, alive, strong in the way a man looks when he knows his purpose. But the man next to him, the one with the red circle drawn around his face, looked different. Serious. A little too stiff. Eyes that didn't match the smile. Under the circled face, someone had written a name. T. Morrison. Mac didn't know the name. But the stranger on the porch clearly did. You're from Station 43? Mac asked. The man nodded slowly. My name's Chief Adler. Jake worked for me for years. I saw you with the bike this morning. People talk. They said you brought it home. His voice cracked. He was one of the best men to ever walk through those doors. Hannah stepped closer, still protective of Lily. Why are you here? What does that picture mean? Chief Adler hesitated, like he wasn't sure whether to step inside or run from what was about to spill out. Jake warned me, he whispered. He warned all of us. But none of us believed him. Warned you about what? Mac asked. The chief swallowed. About Morrison. Lily's grip tightened on her mother's sleeve. Hannah frowned. Is this about Jake's last call? The fire that wasn't supposed to go like it did, the chief cut in. That call wasn't an accident. And Jake knew something was wrong. The room went still. Hannah shook her head. No. No, the investigators said. I know what they said, Adler replied, voice trembling with a mixture of anger and grief. But they weren't there. They didn't hear what Jake told me 2 days before it happened. Mac stepped forward. Tell us. Chief Adler wrung his hands, like every word he was about to say hurt. Jake came to me late one night, long after the shift ended. He told me Morrison was cutting corners, shutting off alarms during inspections, signing off buildings he never checked, pocketing money from contractors. He paused. Jake said if a real fire broke out in one of those buildings, someone was going to die. Hannah gasped quietly. Adler continued, I told him to file a report. He did. And 2 weeks later? It disappeared. Like it never existed. Mac felt something hot rise in his chest. And the fire that took Jake? Mac asked. Adler's voice softened. That was one of Morrison's buildings. Silence grew thick and heavy. Lily looked up at Mac with huge, terrified eyes. So? Dad didn't just not come home? Hannah crouched, holding her daughter. Sweetheart. But Lily wasn't crying. She was angry. Angry in a way only a child with a broken truth could be. The chief wiped his eyes. The day before he died, Jake asked me for one more thing, to keep that picture. He said, if something happens to me, you'll know who to look at. I didn't understand what he meant until I saw you return that bike. That's why I came here. He pointed to Mac. He wanted someone honest to find the truth. Mac stared hard at the circled face. T. Morrison, he murmured. Where is he now? The chief hesitated. Retired. Lives about 20 minutes from here. Keeps to himself. Folks in town avoid him. They don't know why, they just do. Bo's gravelly voice came from the doorway he had slipped in silently after following Mac's bike. We do now. Before anyone could stop him, Lily stepped toward Mac, grabbing his vest with both hands. Please, she whispered. Don't let him get away with whatever he did to my dad. Hannah opened her mouth to stop her, but the words didn't come. She knew what Jake would have done. She knew what he would have wanted. Mac knelt until he was eye level with Lily. I don't make promises lightly, he said softly. But I'll tell you this, we're not letting your dad's story end in a lie. Lily nodded, her face a blend of fear and hope. Chief Adler exhaled. If you go after Morrison, you should know he doesn't scare easy. And he's kept his secrets buried a long time. Mac stood, jaw set. Good, he said. We're done with secrets. Bo cracked his knuckles. So what's the move? Mac picked up his helmet from the couch. We pay Morrison a visit. Hannah stepped forward quickly, grabbing his arm, not to stop him, but to steady herself. Please be careful, she whispered. Mac nodded once. We always are. Lily stood in the doorway, her father's letter clutched in her fist like a shield. As Mac and Bo walked out, the golden porchlight fell across the circled face in the photo one last time. And in that moment, Mac knew. This wasn't about a bike anymore. This was about truth. This was about justice. This was about Jake Turner. You won't believe what happens when Mac and the crew track down Morrison, because the man answers the door with something none of them expected, and everything they thought they knew flips upside down. The ride to Morrison's house wasn't loud. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't the kind of thunderous motorcycle parade the Angels were known for. It was quiet. Purposeful. Heavy. Only 3 riders went: Mac, Bo, and Ryder. This wasn't club business. This was personal. The sun dipped low as they moved through the backroads outside town, long shadows stretching across cracked pavement. Morrison lived in a rural patch of land just past the county line, an old farmhouse hidden behind leaning trees and a rusted mailbox that looked like it hadn't held mail in years. Bo cut his engine first. This the place? Mac nodded, checking the faded address on the mailbox. Yeah. Ryder scanned the tree line. Guy's a ghost, he muttered. A real creep if you ask me. The house sat quiet. Too quiet. One porch light flickered weakly. A truck sat in the gravel driveway, dust blanketing the windshield. Mac walked up the creaking steps and knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. A shadow moved inside. The door finally opened, and the moment it did, the air changed. Because the man standing there wasn't what any of them expected. T. Morrison wasn't some hard-eyed villain. He wasn't intimidating or cruel-looking. He looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped. His face was gaunt. His eyes were ringed with sleeplessness. He held a cane in one hand and wore a faded Firehouse t-shirt that looked 20 years old. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Mac cleared his throat. Morrison. We need to talk. Morrison blinked slowly, like his brain was catching up. You're Jake's people. Mac tensed. We're here for answers. Morrison gave a humorless laugh. I figured this day would come. Didn't think it'd take this long. He stepped back and opened the door wider. Get in. The three men traded looks. This wasn't what they expected. But they stepped inside. The house smelled like dust, old books, and something faintly metallic. Dusty photos lined the mantel, Firehouse group shots, awards, newspaper clippings. None recent. All from decades ago. Morrison eased into an armchair with a shaky exhale. Let me guess, he said. Someone found the old picture. Mac didn't answer. Instead, he pulled the folded clipping from his vest and set it on the coffee table. Morrison stared at the circled face, his own, like it was a mirror reflecting a version of himself he wished he could erase. I circled that, Morrison said quietly. Ryder stepped forward. Why? Morrison rubbed his temples with two trembling fingers. Because Jake told me to. The room froze. Mac's voice was low. Chief Adler said you were cutting corners, taking money, putting people at risk. Morrison looked up sharply. Is that what he told you? Bo crossed his arms. Yeah. And he said Jake filed a report on you. Morrison let out a weak, broken laugh. He did. And I begged him not to. Mac frowned. Why? Morrison swallowed, eyes glassy. Because I wasn't taking money. I was covering for someone who was. The house fell dead silent. Mac's heart thudded hard. Who? Morrison shook his head slowly. I won't say his name. Not unless you promise me something. Ryder stepped forward. We don't make deals with liars. I'm not lying, Morrison snapped, surprising all of them. The sudden fire in his voice flashed with something raw. Pain. Guilt. Something he'd carried too long. You want the truth? Morrison whispered. You want justice for Jake? Then listen. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Years ago, a contractor was bribing fire inspectors to ignore faulty wiring, expired systems, cheap materials. Someone high up in the department was taking envelopes under the table to clear those buildings anyway. Mac swallowed. And you covered for him? Morrison nodded slowly. I was afraid. Afraid he'd ruin my career. Afraid he'd ruin my family. Afraid he'd frame me if I spoke out. He looked at the floor. I was a coward. Bo scowled. Jake wasn't. No, Morrison whispered. Jake wasn't. He took a shaky breath. When he filed the report, he came to me the same night. Asked me if I was involved. I told him no. Told him I made the wrong choice staying quiet. He believed me. Mac clenched his jaw. So what happened next? Morrison's eyes filled with tears. The report didn't disappear on its own. Mac's blood ran cold. Someone high up buried it, Morrison said softly. And the next day, the call came in. He looked up with a grief so deep it shook the room. That fire wasn't an accident, he whispered. And Jake wasn't the only target. Ryder froze. What are you saying? Morrison wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I was supposed to be on that call. The room exploded in silence. Bo's jaw dropped. You're saying? Yes, Morrison whispered. Jake died in my place. Mac felt the air drain out of the room. We traded shifts last minute. A simple switch. Jake thought he was helping me out. Morrison's voice cracked. And I've been living with that guilt every day since. He looked Mac dead in the eyes. If you want justice, you're looking at the wrong man. The house creaked as if the walls themselves were reacting to his words. Outside, the sun finally slipped beneath the trees, plunging the house into shadow. Morrison reached behind him, slowly, shakily, and slid a folder across the table. You want the truth, he whispered. It's in there. And it leads straight to a man you've already met. Max stared at the folder like it was a ticking bomb. He opened it. And what he saw inside made his stomach drop. The name inside Morrison's folder isn't just familiar, it's someone tied directly to Lily's family, and someone who's been watching the situation unfold far too closely. The folder felt too light for how heavy the truth inside it was. Mac opened it slowly, like he already knew he wasn't going to like what he saw. Morrison watched him with hands trembling on his cane, breath uneven, eyes hollowed by years of guilt. Bo leaned over Mac's shoulder. Ryder hovered behind them, arms crossed, jaw tight. Inside the folder lay 3 sheets of paper, old, faded printouts stapled crooked at the corner. The first page was an inspection sign-off sheet from the same building where Jake lost his life. The signature at the bottom hit Mac like a punch. Adler. Chief Adler. The same man who had stood on Hannah's porch just hours ago. The same man who looked Mac in the eyes and said Morrison was the problem. The same man who claimed Jake trusted him. Mac's hands curled around the paper until the edges bent. You're telling me Jake's own chief was in on this? Mac's voice was low, dangerous. Morrison nodded. 4 years. He cleared shoddy wiring, faulty alarms, unsafe structures. Contractors paid him well. Bo let out a bitter laugh. And he blamed you for it? Morrison swallowed. I was the perfect fall guy. Quiet. Alone. No one listens to a man like me. Mac stared at the signature again. Adler. The letters twisted like a snake on the page. Ryder stepped closer, voice tight. Why circle your own face in that photo if Adler was dirty? Because Jake didn't know, Morrison whispered. He suspected someone was dirty, he just didn't know who. He only knew someone inside the department was covering up failures. He thought it might be me because he saw me near the inspections most often. So you let him think that? Bo snapped. I tried to tell him the truth. Morrison's voice cracked. But I didn't get the chance. He died the next day. The room went still. Mac forced himself to breathe, the paper trembling in his grip. Why didn't you say something after the fire? Mac pressed. Morrison's eyes filled again. Because Adler threatened me. Said if I opened my mouth he'd make sure the department blamed me for Jake's death. Said he'd ruin me. Take my pension. Take my family's future. He leaned back, exhausted. I know I should have spoken up anyway. I was a coward. Jake wasn't. Mac closed the folder. This stays between us, he said sharply. Ryder blinked. You're not gonna tell Lily yet? No, Mac said. Not until we have proof solid enough to burn Adler's whole house down. Bo nodded. Kid's been through enough. Morrison gripped his cane. There's more. He motioned to the last page. Mac flipped it over. It was a copy of a complaint Jake had filed. Unofficial. Scribbled. Barely legible. Like Jake wrote it in a hurry. At the bottom, in faint ink. I think Adler's covering inspections. Verify contractor bribery. Morrison not involved. Bo sucked in a breath. Jake cleared Morrison. Ryder muttered, and Adler hid this too. Morrison nodded. Jake trusted the wrong man. Mac slammed the folder shut. Where's Adler now? Station 47, Morrison whispered. He's still chief. Everyone thinks he's a hero. Mac tightened his jaw. Not for long. He turned toward the door. Morrison called out, voice shaking, be careful. Adler's powerful. Connected. He's got friends in the city. If he knows you're digging, he'll strike first. Mac didn't look back. He already struck, he said. He took Jake from Lily. That's enough. The ride back was colder, darker. The night air slapped against their jackets, but none of them felt it. Their minds were locked on one name. One betrayal. Adler. The man who stood in Lily's doorway with sympathy in his voice and guilt behind his eyes. When they reached the clubhouse, the crew gathered around as Mac dropped the folder on the table. The room filled with low curses, fists slamming into wood, disbelief turning into rage. But Mac wasn't emotional. He was controlled. Focused. This wasn't just about the bike, or even Jake anymore. It was about Lily. It was about truth. It was about a man who pretended to grieve while hiding the knife he'd used. Adler thinks he's safe, Mac said, standing at the head of the table. Thinks no one's ever gonna question him. Bo nodded. He doesn't know us. Ryder cracked his knuckles. What's the move, Mac? Mac looked at the folder again, then at the men who would follow him into fire if he asked. We dig, he said. We find every building he cleared. Every envelope he took. Every lie he buried. And then? Bo asked. Mac's voice dropped to a quiet promise. Then we show Lily who her dad really was. Before anyone could respond, the clubhouse door swung open. And Hannah rushed in, breathless, eyes full of panic. Mac, you need to come. Now. His chest tightened. What happened? Hannah's voice cracked as she forced the words out. It's Lily. She's gone. What drove Lily to disappear, and the trail she leaves behind, will push Mac into a search far more dangerous than he ever expected, especially when he realizes who she went looking for. Mac didn't wait for Hannah to finish her sentence. He was already moving out the door, across the gravel lot, boots pounding like thunder. The rest of the crew followed close behind, their faces tightening into the same silent fear. Hannah caught his arm before he reached his bike. Her hands were shaking so hard he could feel it through his denim. She was in the backyard an hour ago, she said, voice breaking. I went inside to make dinner. When I checked again, she was gone. Her bike too, the little dirt bike you gave her. It's missing. Mac's pulse slammed in his throat. Lily didn't run for no reason. She wasn't a reckless kid. She was smart. Thoughtful. Careful. So if she left on her own? She was going somewhere. He crouched down in front of Hannah, steadying her hands. Did she say anything earlier? Anything at all? Hannah pressed her palms to her forehead, trying to think through her panic. After you left, she kept looking at the letter. She asked me if the world ever tells the whole truth. Her voice quivered. I thought she meant Jake. I didn't think. Bo stepped up. She took the bike. That means she didn't go far. Ryder pointed his flashlight toward the edge of the clubhouse lot. Tracks here. Fresh. The dirt bike's tread marks curved sharply away from the gravel and headed toward the tree line behind the clubhouse, narrow trails, barely visible in the twilight. Mac followed the tracks with his eyes, jaw tightening. She's heading north, he said quietly. Hannah froze. Why north? Mac looked at her, face grim. Because north leads toward Station 47. Hannah went pale. Bo spat under his breath. She's going after Adler. Ryder cursed. Damn it, she's just a kid. No, Mac said. She's Jake's kid. And that made all the difference. They rode slow through the woods, headlights slicing thin beams through branches and dust. The dirt path narrowed the deeper they went, roots, leaves, and broken twigs marking Lily's trail. Cal radioed in from the back. Tracks confirm it, she came this way. Speed looked steady. She wasn't running wild. She knew where she was going. She's determined, Bo muttered. Stubborn like her old man. And brave like him too, Mac added quietly. They broke through the tree line and hit the old service road, cracked asphalt, faded white lines, small enough that hardly anyone used it anymore. Perfect for a kid trying not to be noticed. Hannah clung to Mac's waist from behind, riding pillion, head tucked down as she whispered prayers under her breath. She insisted on going, Mac didn't argue. The road sloped downhill toward the outskirts of town. In the distance, through the thinning trees, the red doors of Station 47 came into view, bright as blood in the dying sunlight. Mac's stomach turned. She really came this far? Hannah whispered. Bo rode alongside them. She's got her dad's fire. Ryder pointed suddenly. There. On the grass near the side of the firehouse, next to a chain-link fence, sat Lily's little dirt bike, propped on its kickstand like she parked it on purpose. The headlights still glowed faintly. Hannah nearly choked. Oh God, she's here. Mac braked hard, jumped off, and sprinted to the bike. Warm engine. Warm seat. She wasn't far. He whipped around toward the firehouse just as the front door swung open. And there stood Chief Adler. He wasn't in uniform this time. He wore jeans, a worn flannel, and the kind of expression that didn't match the panic swelling in Mac's chest. His face wasn't angry. Or scared. It was something worse. Calm. Adler stepped forward slowly, raising both hands in a measured, practiced gesture. Mac. Hannah. I was just about to call you. Hannah's eyes widened. Where's Lily? Adler's voice was low, steady, deliberate. Inside. She came here looking for me. Mac stepped forward, fists clenched. Why? Adler sighed, rubbing his forehead. She said she found Jake's letter, and something about a picture. Bo took a step closer. Did you tell her anything? Adler frowned, genuinely confused. Tell her what? Mac's jaw flexed. Don't play dumb. Adler looked between them, his brows furrowing. Look, I told her Jake was a hero. That he saved lives. That he was the best damn firefighter this county ever knew. He paused. Which is the truth? Mac didn't blink. And the other truth? Adler's eyes narrowed. What other truth? Before Mac could answer, the firehouse door creaked open again. Lily stepped outside. Her small hand was wrapped around something. Something metallic. Something familiar. Jake's firefighter badge. She held it tightly, like it was a compass. Her voice was small, but unwavering. Mom. Mac. I know who lied. Hannah's knees nearly buckled. Baby, come here. But Lily didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Mac. Dad wrote more on the back of the letter, she whispered. Mac froze. What? Lily lifted the badge and behind it, a folded scrap of paper. I found the rest of his message. What's written on the back of Jake's letter turns everything on its head, and the person it points to is someone no one suspected, someone who's been close to Lily from the very beginning. The world froze. Lily stood on the firehouse steps with her father's firefighter badge in one hand and a folded scrap of paper in the other, paper that matched the same lined notebook sheet Jake's letter had been written on. The corners were torn, the edges singed like it had been ripped away in a hurry. Mac's gut twisted. Hannah's breath came shallow and uneven. Even Adler, who moments ago looked composed, suddenly paled. "Lily," Hannah whispered, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, what do you mean? What message?" Lily swallowed hard. Her eyes shimmered with fear, anger, and, somehow, understanding. "Dad knew someone was lying," she said quietly, her voice echoing off the firehouse walls. "He wrote more. On the back of the page. But it got torn off." She held up the scrap. Mac stepped closer. "Where'd you find that?" "In the badge," Lily said. "Dad hid it inside the lining. I noticed the leather was loose when I touched it. I pulled it open and found this." She offered the paper to Mac. His hands were steady, outwardly. Internally, he felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. He unfolded it carefully. Lined paper. Blue ink. Jake's handwriting. Only one sentence was written on it. A short one. But enough to send a shock through Mac's spine. "The man who can't be trusted is the one who cries the loudest." Mac reread it. Twice. Bo stepped up behind him. "What the hell does that mean?" Ryder added, crying. "Jake's talking about someone who pretends to be emotional." Lily pointed at Adler. "He cried when he saw me." Adler stiffened. "Of course I cried. Your father was. His voice cracked. And Mac watched him closely. Too closely. No tears. Just broken breaths. Practiced breaths. Hannah grabbed Lily's shoulders protectively. "Honey, your dad didn't mean Chief Adler specifically, he could have been talking about anyone who." No, Lily shook her head. "Because he wrote something else." She reached into her pocket and pulled out another piece, a second scrap. Smaller. Crumpled. None of them knew she had it. Her voice wavered. "I found this earlier. I didn't show you because I didn't understand." She handed it to Mac. This one had only 2 words. "Check locker." Bo cursed under his breath. "Locker? Which locker?" Lily lifted her chin. "Dad's." Adler's face changed instantly, tightened, stiffened, panicked. And that was all Mac needed to see. He stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "Where's Turner's old locker?" Adler hesitated. "Too long. Far too long." Ryder moved closer. "Chief, answer him." Adler swallowed, eyes darting toward the station hallway like a trapped animal. "Why?" "It's empty. Long emptied. There's nothing there." "No one asked if it was empty," Mac said. "We asked where it is." Adler stepped back. "I don't think." Hannah gasped suddenly, realization hitting her like lightning. "Mac," she whispered. "He didn't cry earlier." "What?" Mac asked. "When he talked about Jake, when he talked about the fire," Hannah's voice trembled. "He didn't shed a tear. Not one." Lily's eyes filled with fierce certainty. "Dad knew him." Adler backed toward the door. "Enough. All of you. This is ridiculous." Bo cracked his knuckles. "Buddy, you want to rethink that tone?" Adler lifted a shaking hand. For a moment Mac thought he might reach for a weapon. Instead, Adler whispered, "You don't know what you're getting into." Mac took a step forward anyway. "Show us the locker." Adler's eyes darted to Lily, nervous, fearful of what she knew. Then, finally, his shoulders slumped. "Fine," he muttered. "But I'm warning you. Turner was hiding things too." Lily flinched like she'd been struck. Mac's jaw clenched instantly. "Watch your mouth." Adler turned away, leading them through the firehouse hall. His steps faltered with each footfall. The corridor was lined with gear racks, hoses, boots. Old brick walls soaked with decades of sweat and smoke. The scent of extinguishers lingered faintly. Adler stopped at a row of metal lockers. He pointed to the second one on the left. Jake Turner. The nameplate was still there. Perfectly clean. Untouched. Too untouched. Mac felt something cold crawl up his spine. This locker's been closed for over a year, Adler whispered. No one opens it. Department policy on fallen firefighters. Bo frowned. Then how'd you clean the nameplate? Adler froze. And in that silence, the truth cracked wide open. He hadn't expected that question. He hadn't prepared for that detail. Lily stepped forward. Open it, she whispered. Adler hesitated. But Mac didn't. He grabbed the locker handle and yanked. The metal door swung open. And every person in that hallway sucked in a stunned breath. Because inside Jake Turner's locker, neatly folded, perfectly preserved, was a fireproof bag. Inside it, a flash drive, a notebook, and a sealed envelope. The envelope had one word on the front. For Mac. Lily grabbed Mac's hand. Her voice barely a whisper. Dad chose you. What Mac finds inside Jake's fireproof bag reveals a secret Jake kept hidden for years, and it exposes the real mastermind behind the deadly cover-ups, someone much closer to the Turner family than anyone realized. For a long moment, no one moved. The open locker smelled faintly of smoke, old smoke, the kind that clings to memories years after the fire goes out. Dust floated in the thin strip of hallway light, dancing around the fireproof bag like something sacred. Jake Turner had not just left scraps of truth hidden through town. He had left a whole story, preserved exactly where he knew the right person would eventually find it. And that person was not Hannah. Not Lily. Not even another firefighter. Jake had written Mac's name on the envelope. Mac felt the weight of that choice like someone had placed a live ember in his hands. Hannah's breath trembled beside him. Why would Jake leave something for you? He barely knew you. But Lily knew. Her voice was small but certain. Dad trusted the road. He trusted the people it brought. Mac didn't speak. He couldn't yet. He reached into the locker and lifted the fireproof bag. It was heavier than he expected. Solid. Important. As if it held not just objects but a man's final act of courage. He unzipped it carefully. Inside, a black notebook. A thick flash drive. The sealed envelope addressed to him. Bo let out a low whistle. Jake was hiding a whole treasure chest in here. Adler stepped back like the bag might explode. His face had drained completely of color. Mac noticed. Good. He handed the notebook to Bo and the flash drive to Ryder. Then he held the envelope, the one with his name, in both hands. He ran his thumb over the writing. Jake Turner had written his name with confidence. Like he knew Mac would one day earn the right to hold it. Mac, Hannah whispered shakily, read it. He opened it. The letter inside was long. Not rushed. Not panicked. The handwriting was steady, purposeful. Jake had written this with clarity, not fear. Mac began reading aloud, voice low. If you're reading this, it means the trail I couldn't finish is finally in the hands of someone who won't stop halfway. I only met you once. A charity ride. Maybe you don't remember me. But I remembered you. I watched you help a stranded family on the freeway that day while the rest of us were focused on the ride. You stayed behind. Quiet. No credit. No pictures. Just the right thing. I knew then, if anything ever happened to me, I'd want someone like you to look after my girls. Hannah gasped quietly and covered her mouth. Lily squeezed Mac's hand. Mac swallowed hard and kept reading. The truth is bigger than a bad inspection or a crooked signature. Buildings were being cleared without proper fire codes. Contractors were pocketing money. A city official was helping it happen. And someone high in the department was covering it. Not Morrison. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The real mastermind always stayed clean. Always acted emotional. Always pretended to be the one grieving hardest. The man who cries the loudest. You'll know him when you see him. Adler suddenly stepped back. This is ridiculous. Jake didn't know what he was talking about. Mac held up a hand to silence him. He wasn't done. I collected everything in this bag. Documents. Photos. Recordings. A list of names tied to every building that passed fake inspections. There's one name you'll find more than the rest. A name connected to money. To power. A name that sits close to my family. Someone I trusted once. If something happens to me, follow the money. It will lead you straight to him. Mac turned the page. The final line punched the air out of the room. Start with Hannah's brother. Hannah staggered backward like someone had struck her. My brother, she whispered. No. That can't be right. Jake must have misunderstood. But Mac knew Jake Turner didn't misunderstand anything. Ryder exhaled sharply. Hannah, where's your brother now? Hannah shook her head, dazed. He moved back to town a few months ago. Said he wanted to help me out. I thought he was trying to fix things between us. Bo's eyes narrowed. What does he do for a living? Hannah's voice cracked. He works for the city. Something with budgets and contracts. He never talks about it. Mac locked eyes with Adler. And in that instant, Adler looked terrified of something much bigger than them. Where is he? Mac asked Hannah. Hannah's lips trembled. At my house. He's watching Lily sometimes when I'm at work. He has a key. Lily's eyes widened with slow, dawning fear. He was at our house today. Mac felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. And then an engine roared outside. Fast. Hard. Too close. Bo spun toward the exit. Someone just peeled out of the lot. Ryder cursed. He was listening. Mac didn't wait. He grabbed his helmet and ran for the door. Because if Hannah's brother had been spying, if he heard Jake's message, if he knew they had the evidence, then Lily wasn't the only one in danger anymore. The whole Turner family was. What happens when Mac chases down the fleeing car will drag the Angels into a confrontation that's been years in the making, and the truth they uncover will finally reveal who Jake feared most. Mac burst through the firehouse doors so fast the metal hinges screamed. Gravel skidded under his boots as he sprinted across the lot, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of his ribs. Headlights flared at the edge of the property, someone gunning a dark sedan toward the old service road. Hannah's voice cracked behind him. Mac! That was his car, that was my brother. Mac didn't look back. He didn't have time. Bo and Ryder were right behind him, no questions asked. The engines roared to life. Mac's Harley vibrated beneath him, trembling with the same fury rising in his chest. Gravel sprayed as the three bikes shot forward like arrows released from a bow. The sedan fishtailed up the service road, taillights glowing blood red as it accelerated into the dark trees. Ryder shouted over the engines, "He's pushing that thing too hard." Bo growled, "Good. That means he's scared." Mac narrowed his eyes, leaning into the throttle. "Keep pressure," he ordered. "Box him if he turns off." The night swallowed their engines, the roar echoing through pines and abandoned farmland. The cold wind knifed across their jackets, but none of them felt it, not when a man holding Jake's secrets was fleeing into the dark. Inside the Turner home, Hannah clutched Lily close, shaking as the realization hit her like a collapsing roof. Her own brother. The one who came back to help. The one who had a key. The one Jake feared enough to name in a goodbye letter. Lily whispered, "Mom, why would Uncle Eric do something bad?" Hannah had no answer. Because she no longer knew who her brother was. Meanwhile, the chase streaked across County Road 9, long, empty asphalt cutting through cornfields late in their season. The sedan jerked as it hit a pothole, tires screeching. Mac saw the driver grip the wheel with desperate hands. "Eric!" Mac barked into the night. "Pull over before you kill someone." But Eric didn't slow. He sped up. Bo cursed. "He's gonna wreck that thing." Ryder pointed. "Turn coming up, sharp one." Mac knew that curve well. Too well. If the sedan took it at this speed. "Bo!" Mac yelled. "Left flank. Cut him." Bo swerved hard, his bike kicking dust as he tore through the shoulder. He shot ahead, intending to force the car to brake. But Eric did something unexpected. He didn't slow. He didn't veer. He hit the turn full speed. The tires shrieked. The back end fishtailed wildly. For a split second, it looked like the sedan would flip, but Eric fought the wheel, barely regaining control as he skidded onto the straightaway. Ryder exhaled. He's running like someone who's guilty of a whole lot more than a few bad signatures. Mac's jaw clenched. "I want him talking," he growled. "Not dead." He leaned low over the handlebars, engine snarling beneath him. The road stretched ahead, empty, dark, silent except for the pounding engines chasing justice down a forgotten highway. Eric's car finally jerked onto a gravel pull-off, a narrow dead-end clearing behind an old grain silo. No houses. No lights. No witnesses. A place someone goes when they don't want to be found. The sedan swerved to a stop, slamming into a trash bin. Metal crunched. Sparks flew. The hood smoked. Eric stumbled out, hands trembling, breath ragged. He looked nothing like the polished city worker who smiled politely at neighbors. He looked cornered. Terrified. And dangerous. Mac braked hard, gravel spraying as he stopped 10 feet away. Bo and Ryder flanked him instantly. Eric's eyes darted from Mac, to the folders strapped on Ryder's bike, to the three men closing in. "Stay back," Eric gasped. "You don't understand." "Oh, we understand plenty," Bo snapped. "You were taking bribes. Clearing unsafe buildings. And when Jake found out." "I didn't kill him," Eric shouted, voice cracking raw. "I swear. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." Mac's spine froze. "What do you mean supposed to?" Eric backed up into the metal silo, fingers white-knuckled. "I was supposed to fix it. Change the report. Move the money. Cover up the wiring. It was just paperwork." His breath hitched. But when Jake confronted Adler panicked. "I thought he'd just bury the complaint again, not send Jake into that building." Bo took a step forward. "Adler sent him?" Eric nodded violently. "He rerouted the call. He changed the response list. Jake wasn't even supposed to be on shift that day." Mac's chest felt like it was collapsing. Adler. The man who cried the loudest. The man who opened his door calmly to Lily. The man who pretended to care. Ryder's eyes went ice cold. "So you ran because you thought we'd come for you before we got to Adler?" Eric shook his head miserably. "I ran because Adler told me if anyone ever came digging, he'd pin everything on me. He said he'd ruin me, ruin my name, ruin my family." He slid down the silo wall to his knees. "You don't know how powerful he is." Mac stared down at him. "Then you'd better start talking," he said, voice low. "Because we're going to bring him down and you're going to help us." Eric looked terrified. But he nodded. Because he knew the truth. Once the angels were coming. There was nowhere left to hide. What Eric confesses next exposes the darkest part of Adler's plan, and when Mac learns who Adler is targeting next, the race to save a life becomes a fight against time. Eric's shoulders shook as he sat in the dirt, back pressed against the cold metal of the grain silo. His breath hitched and stuttered like he was trying to hold himself together with nothing but thin air. The darkness around them felt heavier now, thick enough to touch. Mac crouched down, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the panic. "Start talking. Now." Eric squeezed his eyes shut. "You have to understand. Adler wasn't always like this." Bo scoffed. "Spare us the sentimental garbage." "No, listen," Eric insisted, hands trembling. "He started as a good man. He loved Jake like a brother. He loved the department. But something changed when those contracts came through: money, influence, pressure. He got mixed up with the wrong people. And when Jake uncovered it, he silenced him," Ryder said flatly. Eric shook his head violently. "No. Adler would never kill Jake with his own hands. That's why he used the building. He knew Jake would run inside without hesitation. He counted on it." A sick, cold weight dropped into Mac's stomach. "He used Jake's heroism against him," Mac whispered. Eric broke then, his voice cracking. "I tried to warn him. I tried to tell Jake to back off. But he wouldn't. He said people were going to die if someone didn't step up." Mac's jaw clenched so hard it ached. Jake Turner had died trying to save the same people the city had forgotten. Bo paced away, cursing under his breath. Ryder stood still, staring at the stars like he wished they could burn the truth away. Mac leaned in closer. What was Adler planning next? Eric swallowed hard. "He thinks I'm the weak link. He's been watching me. Watching Hannah. Watching Lily." Mac stiffened. "Watching Lily?" Eric nodded miserably. "He knows she talks to people. He knows she asked questions. He knows she saw files in Jake's office he didn't want anyone to see." Ryder's voice dropped into a dangerous growl. "What files?" Eric hesitated, then whispered, "There's a list." Bo spun around. "A list of what?" Eric looked up with hollow eyes that no longer had anything to hide. "People Adler planned to remove." The clearing fell silent. Mac's heart hammered once, hard. "Remove," he repeated. "You mean fire? Blacklist?" Eric shook his head, slow and terrified. "No. I mean eliminate. Get rid of. Make disappear. Anyone tied to Jake's investigation was a threat." He fumbled with his jacket pocket, pulling out a battered notebook page. "It's not the whole list, I only ever saw the first page, but I stole this." He handed it to Mac with shaking hands. Mac unfolded the page under the moonlight. A list of names, written in neat block letters. He read the first one. Jake Turner. He read the second. Deputy Chief Morrison. He read the third. Eric Lawson, Hannah's brother. Eric choked out, "That's when I knew he'd come for me, too." Mac turned the page slightly. There were two more names. The fourth hit like a punch to the ribs. Hannah Lawson. Ryder swore under his breath. Her own brother didn't protect her? Eric shook his head, breaking again. "I tried. I kept her close so I could keep Adler from noticing her. But then Lily. Lily started asking questions. Jake taught her to be curious. Adler hates curious people." Mac lowered the paper slowly, dread crawling through his body. He looked at the final name on the list. He froze. Bo whispered, "What is it?" Mac stared at the name, stunned. Because it wasn't just a name. It was a child's name. Lily Turner. The youngest person on the list. The boldest handwriting. And the only name underlined twice. Mac felt everything inside him go still. Ryder's jaw clenched. He put an 8-year-old on his kill list? Eric nodded miserably. He said kids talk too much. He said they remember details adults forget. He said she saw something the night of the firehouse incident. Mac's heart dropped. "The night Jake died," he whispered. Eric nodded. "Adler thinks she saw him." Bo's eyes widened. Saw him do what? Eric looked at the dirt. Saw him change the dispatch order. Saw him reroute the call so Jake would be first inside. The clearing went cold. Mac stood slowly, the list trembling in his hand. Where is Adler now? He asked, voice like steel. Eric shook his head. I don't know. But he said something this morning. He said tonight was the night to finish what Jake started. I didn't know what he meant. Ryder cursed. He's going after someone. Mac's voice dropped into a deadly whisper. He's going after Lily. Eric's face crumpled. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But Mac wasn't listening anymore. He was already running toward his bike. Bo and Ryder were right behind him. Engines fired up like thunder. Mac's voice tore through the night. He touched the wrong kid. We ride now. As the Angels race back toward town, Adler is already moving, and what he does next will force Mac into a confrontation he may not survive. The engine screamed through the night, a wall of thunder ripping down County Road 9 as Mac, Bo, and Ryder tore back toward town. The air smelled like cold asphalt and threat. The white lines blurred under their headlights, each mile clawing at Mac's nerves like barbed wire. He didn't speak. Couldn't. The only thing he saw in his mind was Lily, brave, curious Lily, smiling shyly, clutching her father's old keychain, believing the world was still mostly good. She was on a kill list. A child. Bo pulled up alongside him, shouting over the wind, Hannah call yet? Mac checked his vibrating phone, 3 missed calls, all from Hannah. His gut clenched. She knows something's wrong. Ryder yelled. We're close, quarter mile. The town's lights appeared ahead, small, dim, trembling as if even they understood the danger approaching. Mac leaned harder, pushing the bike to the edge of what metal and willpower could handle. Then he saw it. A single set of headlights turning onto Maple Lane. Not a biker. Not a neighbor. A city fleet vehicle. Dark blue. Unmarked. Familiar. Mac's blood ran cold. That's Adler, he growled. Bo punched the throttle. Cut him off. But the blue sedan reached the Turner driveway first. Inside the house, Hannah's hands shook as she locked the front door. Her pulse hammered so loud she couldn't hear anything else. Lily stood beside her, clutching her backpack like a shield. Mom, she whispered. Why are you crying? Hannah wiped her face, she didn't want Lily to see fear. Not now. Because I'm so happy Mac found the truth, she lied. We just need to wait for him, okay? Lily nodded, small but trusting. Then the motion sensor light outside flicked on. Hannah froze. A silhouette stood on the porch. Tall. Broad shoulders. City-issued jacket. Adler. He raised his hand and knocked once. Not frantic. Not polite. Just certain. Hannah backed away, pulling Lily behind her. Don't make a sound, she whispered. But Adler spoke through the door, his voice calm, the kind of calm that comes from a man who believes no one can stop him. Hannah, open the door. We need to talk. Hannah's knees nearly buckled. What do you want? I'm here to fix a problem, Adler said gently. That little girl knows things she shouldn't. Jake should have kept her away from the station. Lily whimpered softly. Hannah clapped a hand over her mouth. Adler continued, the truth is dangerous, Hannah. And Jake. Jake made everything worse. Hannah's voice cracked. You murdered him. No, Adler said without shame. I made a decision. A hard one. For the greater good. He tried the doorknob. It rattled. Hannah, open it. Before someone gets hurt. Max saw it all as he rounded the corner, the silhouette on the porch, the hand twisting the handle, the soft porch light spilling across Adler's face like a horror revealed. Mac's roar ripped through the night. Adler! Get away from that house. Adler turned slightly, just enough to see 3 motorcycles barreling down the street like a storm given wheels. He stepped back from the door, but only to pull something from his jacket. A pistol. Bo swore violently. He came armed, he's desperate. Ryder shouted, he's gonna shoot. Mac didn't slow. He aimed the bike straight at the porch. Adler lifted the gun. Mac dropped his shoulder, leaned hard, and clipped the front steps with the rear tire. The impact jolted the bike sideways. The machine skidded, throwing sparks, roaring like a wounded animal. Adler stumbled back, losing his aim. Bo and Ryder slid their bikes sideways, forming a steel barricade between Adler and the house. Mac leapt off the bike before it stopped moving, landing hard on his shoulder, rolling onto the lawn. Pain exploded through him, but he forced himself to his feet. Step away from the door, Mac ordered, breath ragged. Right now. Adler cocked the gun, eyes wide, a mix of rage and fear boiling together. You don't understand, Mac. Jake was going to destroy everything. I did what I had to. You put a child on your kill list, Mac growled. Adler's gaze flicked toward the door. She saw me change the dispatch board. She saw me reroute the call. Kids notice things. His voice turned cold. And kids talk. The last thin thread holding Mac together snapped. You'll never touch her, he said, voice shaking with fury. You'll never get within breathing distance of her again. Adler raised the gun. But he didn't fire. He froze. Because the door behind him creaked open. Hannah stood there, tears streaking down her cheeks, holding Jake Turner's old fire axe. Her voice trembled but stood firm. Leave my daughter alone. Adler turned sharply, too sharply. In that split second, Mac lunged. He tackled Adler, the gun flying out of his grip, skidding across the porch. Bo slammed a boot on it before it could slide off the edge. Ryder pinned Adler's arm. Mac stood over him, chest heaving, adrenaline roaring. Adler glared up at him, a broken man still convinced he was the smartest person in the room. You think this ends with me, he hissed. Mac leaned down. It ends right now. What Adler reveals next is the twist no one expects, because he wasn't working alone, and the person backing him is far more dangerous than the angels ever imagined. Adler struggled beneath Mac's grip, breath ragged, face twisted, not with fear, but with a bitter kind of satisfaction. The kind of smile a man wears when he knows a secret no one else does. You think this ends with me, he rasped. But Jake. Jake never understood how deep this goes. Mac tightened his hold until Adler winced. Start talking. Adler's eyes flicked toward Hannah, standing behind Mac, still holding Jake's fire axe. Lily clung to her mother's leg, wide-eyed, trembling but brave enough to stay where she could see Mac. Adler's voice dropped to a soft, almost mocking whisper. You think I had the power to bury reports, redirect inspections, reassign firefighters? A hollow laugh escaped him. I was just the tool. The real hand? You've met him. Mac's stomach twisted. Who? Adler's eyes shifted across the yard, toward the end of the street, toward the house with the wide porch and the perfectly manicured lawn. Ryder spotted it first. His voice dropped. Oh, hell. Because stepping out of that porch was a man every firefighter in town trusted. Chief Ronald Hale. Decorated. Admired. The man who gave speeches at memorials for fallen heroes. The man who comforted Hannah when Jake died. The man who held Lily during the funeral like she was his own blood. And there he stood now, hands in his pockets, watching the chaos with calm indifference. Mac felt his blood go cold. Adler smiled through split lips. There he is. The man Jake tried to expose. Chief Hale spoke as he walked closer, his tone smooth, steady, like a man welcoming guests to a barbecue. You boys sure like making noise. Ryder stepped forward, fists clenched. You were in on it? Hale shrugged casually. I oversaw the inspection contracts. Let certain shortcuts slide. Money flowed. Doors stayed open. Everyone benefited. Bo spat on the grass. Jake didn't. Hale nodded. Jake was inconvenient. Mac's voice shook with fury. You sent him into that burning building. No, Hale corrected calmly, stopping just 3 feet away. I let Adler handle that part. Delegation is important in leadership. Adler flinched at the casual betrayal. Hannah's voice ripped through the night. You held my daughter at the funeral. You cried for us. Hale turned toward her, expression soft. Almost paternal. I cried because Jake could have been useful if he'd kept his head down. Hannah gripped the axe tighter. Lily hid behind her. Mac stepped in front of them, fury burning so hot his vision blurred. You're done, he growled. Adler's done. Eric talked. We have the list. We have everything. Hale smiled. A smile with no warmth. You think anyone will believe a biker and a disgraced inspector? Please. Let's make them believe, Ryder snarled. Hale lifted his hands slowly, as if bored. Well, I had hoped to handle this quietly. But since you forced my hand. He reached into his jacket. Mac moved before he even thought. He lunged. Hale pulled. But Ryder was faster. A single shot cracked the night. Hale staggered, dropping the hidden pistol, hand clutching his shoulder. He sank to one knee, shock filling his eyes. Ryder kicked the gun away. Try reaching for anyone's kid now. Hale stared at Mac, breathing heavy. You have no idea what you've ruined. Mac stepped closer, fire in his voice. No. We're fixing what you destroyed. Bo grabbed zip ties from his saddlebag and bound Hale's hands. Adler was already tied. Eric stood limp against the porch, defeated but alive. Sirens wailed in the distance, fast, desperate, coming straight for Maple Lane. Hannah dropped the axe and pulled Lily into her arms, sobbing with relief. Lily looked up at Mac, tearful, shaken, but safe. You came back, she whispered. Mac knelt to her level, voice breaking. I will always come back for you. When the cruisers arrived, officers were stunned to find the decorated chief and his right-hand man cuffed on a suburban lawn and a line of bikers standing between them and the terrified family they tried to destroy. Hale tried to speak. Tried to spin. Tried to threaten. But Eric's testimony. Jake's recordings. The list. It all came crashing down. And the real story finally came out. Later, when the chaos settled and the house grew quiet again, Hannah stepped onto the porch. Mac stood beside his bike, helmet under his arm, staring at the stars the way Jake once did. She touched his arm gently. You saved us. Mac shook his head. Jake saved you. I just finished what he started. Lily rushed outside and wrapped her arms around his leg. Come back tomorrow? Mac smiled, bending to hug her tight. Tomorrow. And every day you need me. Bo whistled from the curb. Come on, boss. Ride home. Mac looked at the Turners one last time, Hannah's tired smile, Lily's small hand waving, the house no longer shadowed by fear. He felt something settle inside him. Peace. Purpose. A road finally leading somewhere right. He pulled on his helmet. The Angels started their engines, low, steady, protective. As they rolled down Maple Lane, Mac whispered to the night. Jake, we brought them home. And for the first time in a long time, the road didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. It felt right. It felt like closure.